Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Wire, October, session 10. I feel like 10 should be some sort of a celebration, don't you? Let's just do this. Yay! 10. 10's good.
Hey,
I feel like it was just yesterday that we were talking about doing this.
Plans happen, you see. Watch out, Lisa. When I start talking about things happen.
I do watch out because then there's some level of implementation.
That's right. That's right. We're talking today about the planning standard, and there's all these sayings, aren't there, about planning? Have you got your own favourite saying about planning that you kind of trot out when you're trying to convince people that planning's a really good idea? Share with me anything that you've got in a moment. Put it in chat if you've got a really good saying about planning.
it's very corny. It's very corny. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Alan, that's one of my personal favourites. When you fail to plan, you plan
To fail.
When you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Oh, nearly got that mixed up in my Tasmanian head there. Keep thinking on that. I'm sure there's some gold in there. There's some real pearls in there. Always, always, always when we're on the wire, we always acknowledge that we're on Aboriginal country, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians, the First Nations peoples of all of the country that we're on. And I'm on the beautiful Biripi country today in my home in Port Macquarie. Where are you? Type away. Let us know where you are. Put the name, put the Aboriginal place name if you know it, and the town or suburb that you're joining us from. Include your organisation if you don't think everyone else knows where you are joining us from in terms of your organisation name. That's super helpful. We've got people on Gadigal land. And I know that we've got people on Awabakal country, and we've got people on Darug land. I want to say that I think Darug's, Parramatta, Liverpool kind of area there. And we've got Jenny and Alan joining us from St Lawrence House. That's fantastic. Lynn is joining us from Blacktown. And, Lynn, your organisation's name, help me. Pathways, that's it. I've got lots of community and pathway type organisations at the moment, so thanks for helping me out with that. Where else? We've got people joining from, I know that Jill is down in the beautiful Port Stephens or close by, and so that's some pretty nice country down there, isn't it? All right, the gang's all here. Let's acknowledge all of the elders of all those lands, past, present, emerging, and their deep connection to the land and waters around here in New South Wales. I hope that you're all doing fabulously well, even though you've got challenges like accreditation. No, I know you've got bigger challenges than accreditation. Goodness me, isn't it amazing how things sort of slip down the list when there's other big crisis at the top of the list? You see, it puts it into some perspective, doesn't it? That's right. That's right. And yet here you are, still joining us and still engaged with the process, even though there's a lot going on for your organisations. I'm sorry if yours is an organisation that that has had to sort of, postpone or hybrid the assessment so we don't get to do it all together, because that's not ideal, but it's what we've got and we're making do. So thanks for being flexible, and working with us in that way, because that's how we like to work. Hello. I know I'm going to say it wrong, but I'm going to say Lesky. No.
Liska. Very
Liska,
close,
Liska. Thank you. Thanks.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I had another meeting that ran over. I do apologise, everybody.
Very nice that you're here. Very nice that my daughter's phone's ringing right next to me here that she's left. Oh, sorry, you can't hear that really, can you? So today we're talking about planning. And Liska, we are thinking about, what are our sayings about planning? Alan just gave us a doozy there. He might share that with you again.
Oh, it's an old one. It's a bit corny. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah, let's not plan to fail. What about proper planning prevents poor performance? The 5 P's of planning there. I I know that some people know that there's 6 P's for planning, but that's not me. I'm a lady. I'm not going to say that one. And what about a plan is just something to deviate from? That's my favourite. I love that. A plan is just something to deviate from. But what I think about planning is, if you haven't got a plan, you don't know where you're going, and you certainly don't know where you'll end up. It's very ad hoc, that kind of approach. But at least if you have a plan and you want to deviate, like you want to say, oh, let's go down this bumpy track. Let's go down this sneaky track. I'm thinking about camping now. You know, I love to be out there where there's lots of sneaky tracks. And you know, you might be heading to Darwin from Adelaide. And you go, oh, let's go down that sneaky track. Or let's take that loop road. If you've got a plan, you're still going to come back to the main road and you're still going to get to Darwin. You see? So I just think a plan is just something to deviate from, which means you can review them. You can change them. I sometimes talk to organisations and they say, oh, well, you know, we've delayed our strategic plan because there's these other things that are coming up and they'll impact on the plan. I go, well, just do it and then change it. What, are you crazy? Yeah, you can change a plan. So, you know, that's how I think about plans anyway. Got any other sayings about planning? Happy to hear your comments at any time. Happy for you to put things in chat. Happy if you want to share your strategic plan with anybody here. I know there are some brilliant ones out there. Before we started today, we were just talking about some of the amazing strategic plans that we've seen, and you know, how they're presented visually, plan on a page type thing. They're put on websites. You know, they really are a living, breathing document and a great sort of a great document to promote, you know, to your community about what your intentions are, you know, how you plan to serve them, how you plan to meet their needs. So a pretty important guiding document is a strategic plan. What falls under that is also very important. So today we're talking about the planning standard in service excellence, which is standard 1, and it's broken down into 2 sections. It's broken down into strategic planning and business planning, they call it. But we call it other things, don't we? Who calls it a business plan? Wave to me if you call yours a business plan. I didn't think so. So wave to me if you call it an operational plan. Wave to me if you call it an action plan. Wave to me if you haven't got one. Oh, unmute yourself and tell me what you call yours if I haven't covered off on it. Doesn't matter, as long as it gives legs to the strategic plan. So it operationalises the strategic plan, doesn't it? And that's the document, that's the level of planning that's important. So there's the 2 bits of the planning standard that we're going to be having a look at today. So that's exciting because it seems like most people have got this covered. Is there anyone here who's got their assessment coming up between now and the end of the year? Anybody? Yes, John, you have at Veritas House. How
Kim
exciting.
didn't put her hand up either.
Who?
Lynn.
Oh, Lynn has as well. Lynn, don't be scared. Yes.
I'm very scared.
I want to say congratulations for getting to this point. That is excellent and very exciting too. Remember, it's just a checkpoint. It's just a checkpoint. It's not the destination. So it just, you know, validates all of your fantastic work and highlights some strengths and some opportunities. So I'm very excited for those organisations who've got their assessments coming up. I know it's going to be a bit weird because it might be a hybrid, but there we go. That's exciting. We've got 17 active service excellence clients at the moment. I'm very proud of that. I feel like I'm getting a good chunk of the action, and I feel like I have got friends who are putting the word out for us, because every time we get a new client, I hear someone else's name, and so I feel really warmed by that, because we're glad that we're making friends out there, and we're glad that people think they'd like to work with us. And so 17 active clients is wonderful. In the last 12 months, we've done 11 assessments. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but we know that in the next 12 months, we're probably going to be doing about 20 or 30. So we're ramping up and our team is growing. So we've got a couple of extra assessors coming on, and that's also exciting for us as well. So planning, let's have a look. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to open up the workbook. I'm not opening up the evidence guide because, oh, there's too much information in there for us to have sort of a good, you know, clean sort of conversation about it. So I want to just work from a page where we can see clearly the requirements, and there it is. The strategic planning standard sits under the planning standard. Look at this. We always want to connect with the outcome because that's the intent. That's the intent of the standard. And when we're assessing, that's really what we're trying to see through your evidence. We're trying to see, is that outcome or the intention of the standard, is that met? Okay, so that intention will be expressed through these 6 requirements. So there are 6 requirements under the planning, under the strategic planning standard, and under the business planning standard, underneath this, there are 3 requirements. So what I'd like to do with you is just go through each of these requirements and get you to indicate what you think would be the evidence, you know, that we if we were writing this evidence guide, what would we put in there? So please use the chat to you know, let me know what you think you could provide as evidence. And you think about documents, and we'll think about the other sorts of things that might be available as evidence as well. But you think about documents and we'll think about what else. So what documents could you use to show that the role and values of the organisation are clearly identified and communicated? Whereabouts would we see the role and values of the organisation written down and promoted? Off we go. Let's see if we can get at least 5 in here. Excellent. Website, annual report. Where else might you see them? The role and values. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Come on. Leska is holding the team up here. What have other people got for us? Would you find the role and values of the organisation? Hey, there we go, Jenny. Took the words right out of my mouth. In the mission, the vision, the value statements. And where would you find the mission, vision and value statements? You might find them in job descriptions. You might find them in strategic plans. You might even find them in the annual report. All right, that's fantastic, everyone. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. The next one says, planning is informed by review processes that identify the threats and areas for improvement and innovation and potential alliances. Now, let's have a think about, if we were doing planning, what's the activity that we might do that helps us to identify where there's strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats? What's an activity that we might do to try to lift our heads and have a good look around? Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Environmental scanning. That's exactly what it is. And what's an example of environmental scanning? When you're having a good old look around at all the opportunities, all the things that could come from behind you and whack you on the back of the head if you weren't ready for it. Excellent. We'll have a look around at the risk by doing a risk assessment. We have a look at all of our feedback. What's our community telling us about how we're performing? Where might there be risks and strengths and weaknesses there in that feedback? That's fantastic. What else might we look at? Hey, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. I feel like I want to throw you a chocolate bar. It'd be a cherry ripe for that one. That's fantastic. We do a SWOT analysis. We could also do a PESTLE analysis, my personal favourite, which forces us to really have a look at the external environment. And PESTLE stands for, just quickly, stands for political, economic, social, technology, legislative, and E for environmental. So we could have a look at all of our risks and opportunities through that lens as well. A PESTLE. If you haven't heard of that before, you can look it up. It is a thing. So there we go. That's fantastic. So we would want to see that there's some way that you've done a review of your internal and external environment where your planning opportunities are. Okay, you're not just sitting down going, well, this is what we think. We'd rather you have some sort of analysis or evidence base for where you need to go and what you need to do. So here we go. The next one's very easy. A current strategic plan has been developed. So we would like to see your strategic plan is current or that it's in draft. Okay, so it has actually been drafted, if not ratified. And look at that, the second part of that says it's been developed in consultation with stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders that you might invite to support or be involved in the development of your strategic plan? Lovely, Kate. Kate, tell us how you would involve clients, because I think that's an excellent perspective, but how do you involve them?
You could do it by representation. You could have an advocate group or a single advocate, survey, feedback forms. I don't know.
Fantastic.
Have a party, have a chat. I don't.
That's right. That's right. Bring them together, have some sort of a gathering and ask them a few key questions about what they think on the service and where the service should be heading. Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. The staff could be invited. Partners could be invited to input through a survey, for example. The funders, you might send the funders a draft and say, these are our thoughts, how does it align with some of those sort of state level guiding documents? Yeah, fantastic. So the thing that we might see there is a list. It might be in the strategic plan itself, the consultation process might be in the strategic plan itself, or a list of people as an appendix who were involved or invited to give input. Whether they did or not, like sometimes you put a survey out and it's just sort of, where does that go? And you don't get much response back, but still put down that there were opportunities for people to provide input into your plan. I mean, it's really you're providing a service to a particular community, so they should have an opportunity to input into the plans. That's the intent, isn't it? The next one, number 4, this is going well. Thanks everyone for your contributions. Oh, sorry, just got to move that down a bit. Oh, there it is. Okay, the organisation identifies opportunities where early intervention and prevention will improve outcomes. For example, we're having a look at research that might inform the direction that we would take. There might be some evidence from audits, evaluations that have been undertaken that indicate that we're going in a certain direction, or we will have some certain focus areas. We might do some community engagement, such as having a community meeting or key stakeholder meeting that indicates that we need to align our plan with some of the sort of regional plans or, local plans. You'll have your own examples of these. A review of service models to identify alternatives. So, sometimes research best practice indicates that, we could be implementing different sorts of service models. I know that over recent years, there's been a lot of movement towards implementing full implementation in some organisations of trauma-informed care practice and principles, you see. So that's what I mean about that. That's an example of that. All right. So what we're looking for is that you're having a look around at some ideas about contemporary good practice, if not best practice.
Mari, can I just, oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Can I just ask about this? So we've just started looking at this, and I think we got a bit wrapped up in the early intervention and prevention. So do we have to evidence that specifically, or is it just generally that we're supposed to be looking at best practice for our?
Well, you're having a look when you're setting a plan such as a strategic plan, which is we're in the strategic planning here. You have an opportunity to plan for 2, 3, 5 years ahead mostly, but that's the period of time that we see. So when you're thinking 3 years ahead, that's an example of, you know, early intervention in thinking about, well, what do we need to do now in order to be able to meet the needs of our community across this time frame.
Oh, okay, right.
So it is, you know, just ensuring that you have an evidence base for planning is really what we're talking about here. In that you said, oh, you know, we know that these are trends in our community. We know that these are glaring issues, you know, for the people that we serve. If you're serving women and children escaping violence, then you'll know of some of the emergent trends, you know, around supporting women and potentially their partners as well. So support services moving towards supporting, you know, males as well. So this is something that research and, you know, opportunities to have a look at what other organisations in the sector are doing that informs that practice. Now, in terms of showing evidence of that, you probably won't have a document, though you might be able to cite certain research papers, but it's more around the interview where we'd be asking that question. So we'd be asking questions about, you know, when you are getting ready to plan, what sorts of things inform your planning?
Okay.
We might say, we might ask a question like, you know, what does early intervention mean to you in the context of your service?
Okay, brilliant.
Can I say one thing here? I put my hand down. Is that some of the best evidence of this comes from minutes of planning days, is because that's when you've got staff together and they start talking about what either the gaps are in the service or the gaps are in the community or in the way that they can better serve those. So that's one thing that I really like to see is those planning day outcomes.
That's a good one. Even minutes of team meetings where ideas for improvement are identified and those ideas are actioned. You know, there might be a plan for implementing an improvement. So it really is a question about improvement, early intervention, and how that informs your planning across the organisation. But this is we are within the strategic planning standard. And so we're not just talking about the strategic plan as a document, we're talking about strategic planning as a mindset, you know, like planning to have a strategy to make sure that we achieve some of those bigger goals even, you know. So it's kind of worded in a way that makes you can overthink this, but it basically means, like, you know, how do you generate and incubate and elevate ideas for doing things differently and better? You know, like, what's that creative innovation process? What does that look like? So that's really what it means. But that's a great question, Leska. Thank you. I was going to just bring up the I will bring it up in a minute, the evidence guide, and we'll have another look at what they've listed for that, because that simplifies it a little bit more than probably what I've explained it. Organisational objectives, strategies and strategic outcomes have been communicated to relevant stakeholders. So that means, how are you promoting your plan? How are you promoting your strategic direction? Let's type in the chat some ways that we might be able to communicate to relevant stakeholders the plan. I think it's a lot the same as what you put in there before. So, you know, if you have got a website, what else have you got? Yep. If you have got a website, put it on there. If you want to send it off to funders and let them know, you know, you plan on a page, or, you know, your key focus areas, send it off. Oh, yeah, you could put it on a client brochure, you know, if you had a visual model of it. You know, if you had 5 focus areas and you had a visual model of that, that would be great to put in a brochure. And in the annual report, you could even put it on the wall. I've seen lots of organisations have their strategic focus areas on the wall. There's a defined process and timeline for reporting and review against the strategic plan. So tell me how this happens in your organisation. How do you keep an eye on the plan? Even how do you decide to vary or deviate the plan? What's that process? There's a process and timeline. Now, where it says defined, They do kind of mean documented. They're not saying that, but they're saying defined, in that it's a thing that people know and do. So how do you review how you're going with achieving those strategic goals? How does that happen in your organisation? There's regular review meetings going on. That's good. Who's attending those meetings, Jenny? Is that a board happening, or reporting to the exec and the board? That's fantastic. So that might be through managers' reports, or, you know, updates of work plans and things like that. Oh, an annual strategy day. That's fantastic. I think I might have even come along to one of your annual strategy days there. Leska, was that what was going on there? It looked like huge fun. Yes. Yes. That was really fantastic. A good amount of scribbling on the whiteboard and poster paper, all looking very flash around the walls. That's how I could tell. There was a lot of good planning going on there. All right, so there you go. That's the strategic planning standard. And those 6 indicators, if you were to include those 6 indicators as, let's say, headings in your planning framework, like some organisations will document a planning framework. You can see here it's not really required, but it would be a helpful sort of a document to have to show how all the plans fit together. And, you know, what's the time frame on those documents? And I think I've got a picture of one that I can share with you that I did for another client. And it just shows the sort of connection between the various plans. So, you know, if you were to be documenting a planning framework, then you might use some of these indicators here as section headings. Yeah. So well done, everyone, on the strategic planning front. Now, let's go down to the business planning standard. Don't get rocked by that. It's not something that'd be unfamiliar to people. It's really just how we resource and operationalise the strategic plan. So the strategic plan is a higher level, isn't it? Sort of intention, aspiration, a dream, right? So this business plan makes it real, gives it legs, operationalizes it, yeah, resources it, turns it into something real. So it is pretty important that you do have a plan at this level, and it's usually an annual plan. We will say it doesn't have to be, but it usually is an annual plan. So if you've got a 3-year strategic plan, you would have an annual business or operational plan or action plan. So one of the requirements here is that you have a plan in place that enables the implementation of the objectives and actions that you've got in the strategic direction. Okay, so we need to see that alignment. So if you've got focus area 1, stronger governance, then in the business plan, focus area 1 will have a range of objectives and actions underneath it that can make it happen. Yeah. So, you know, I know that your plan would look like that. Other columns or other aspects of this annual plan that are important in requirement 2 here, how is it going to be resourced? So resources we would think of as, you know, people, money, might be partnerships, might be equipment, you know, might be a certain building or space. So how is that action going to be resourced? What are some of the milestones? So, you know, what is an indicator of success time-wise? So by this quarter or by that quarter, that would be, you know, a good way to break down those timelines. And who's responsible for it? Remember, if you don't delegate something, what happens? Does not happen. So delegation towards a role or towards a partner or whoever's going to give that legs is important. So those sorts of things should be easily visible in your operational plan. And number 3 here, progress against the plan, including performance measures and agreed actions, is reviewed regularly. So that's indicating that you will have to have some measures in there. So in order for you to be able to review your progress, you're going to have a measure in there. So that might be a time frame. It might be how many we're going to be doing, by then. It might be what sort of outcome will we see by then or by then. All right, so make sure, you know, these are SMART goals, that, well, you know what SMART goals are, that they have a measure so that you can review how well you're going with the plan. And so, yeah, the process for reviewing the plan will be important as well. So again, what you told me before, those sorts of management reports, those kind of planning days, those sort of quarterly updates, making sure you've got some data that can show that you're performing either this well or this well or this well, or wow, you're way exceeding what you thought you would. You know, that's a good story to tell. So there you go. There you go. What did I say I was going to show you? Think of your questions now, and I'm going to show you those two things. One is the evidence guide for that tricky indicator, and the other is a diagram of the planning framework. Really simple one. Let me go and find those for you. I've got some groovy resources that I've put together as well that might be helpful. Where is it? Yeah, just make sure you can see that properly. What up? Okay. Planning is informed by here. The organisation identifies opportunities where early intervention prevention will improve outcomes. So, here we go. Here's some real useful evidence. So surveys, community surveys, program evaluations. I don't like many of those ideas there, but this is probably more helpful if you were to read through this. Early intervention and prevention will improve outcomes. So it just means, like, you know, what's the early planning that you did that enabled you to achieve an outcome? That's really what it's talking about. Relevant tools to be applied in the service delivery model or philosophy. So some organisations have got a program logic that talks about the theory of change. So they talk about, you know, what do they do here that enables this sort of change to take place, you know, for a client. So behavioural change, for example, in a recovery model. So you might be talking about early intervention on an organisational level, but you might be talking about early intervention on a client intervention level as well. Okay, so look, they're demonstrating a commitment to research and evidence and assessment of early intervention. So where's, you know, do you base your program design on an evidence base? You look at opportunities to raise community awareness, such as new service delivery models to reduce the stigma associated with their consumer group. You see, so building community awareness is a fabulous early intervention strategy, isn't it? Early intervention and prevention strategy. So that's, the evidence guide does have a lot of information, you know, for you to read through to try to come up with ideas in your own context, of, you know, ideas of evidence in your own context, but it can be confusing and misleading at times because that evidence list is so broad as to sometimes be not very helpful at all. So please don't use that as a checklist. I think we've said that a few times, haven't we? Oh, we have. Now, let me see if I find this little planning framework that we cobbled together for a little, I think it was a youth service, yeah. Where would that be? I know. Yes, and we put it into their governance manual. That's right. Here it is. So, you know, what we did was we got together with their board and staff, and we just brainstormed the way that planning happens in their organisation, and we just drew it up. So what you can see here is they've decided they'll have a 3-year strategic plan. Underneath that, they've got an annual operation plan, and it talks about who's going to develop it and all the things that will be included in it and how they're going to report against it. Underneath the strategic plan is their risk plan, you know, which makes sure that they're identifying and managing all the risks, all the things that could stop them from achieving their strategic plan and their vision. And underneath the risk plan, they've got a business continuity plan, you know, because that's an area of risk that's going to be managed through a different plan, because that's the sort of thing that will be activated on a day, or, you know, when there's a crisis event. And underpinning that, they've got their annual budget. So obviously any grand plans they have in their strategic plan will need to be budgeted for. Otherwise, they don't have much of a chance of being achieved, do they? So other organisations might have plans underneath that, such as the manager's KPIs or the manager's work plan. Underneath that might be individual work plans. So think about all the ways in the organisation that the planning gets done, and, you know, make it a visual. This is not even a very flash one, you know, so this is just something, you know, we're designing something for a tiny little management committee here, so we wanted to keep it nice and simple. So that's what it might look like for you. Ooh. Hello, Jen. You snuck in there. Hello, Olivia. Nice to see you too. Jen's one of our assessors in New South Wales. If you haven't met Jen before, there she is. I like that purple wall, Jen, I have to say. Yeah, that's looking good. We have been talking about the planning standard, and I feel like we've done it well. As a team, we have done it very, very well. Any questions about anything to do with assessment? Any questions at all? Otherwise, I'm going to tell you some of the exciting things that are coming up for us. But I'd love to answer any of your questions, anything that you're worried about or you've forgotten, or you want to ask anyone else in the room. We've got some Sydney visits planned. Oh, there's one of those little bugs. Because we've done half of the assessments online, and we're very happy to say we've got some of the on-site assessments visits planned. When's that, Lisa? When are you heading down there?
Well, we have got pathways in early November, another one in the last week of October, which is also a hybrid, but that's regional since I'm not going to Sydney. And then I get to do a site inspection that was supposed to be in August or July. Oh, there's a cattail. There's another cattail at KK's on the 10th of November. And then I get to head to Bathurst later in November. So very exciting.
Good stuff, getting around the regions and taking a dip into Sydney, tipping your toe in the water there. That's awesome. We have got, I was invited to deliver a short session to the Service Excellence information session. They have these about 3 times a year for new Service Excellence clients that are signing up around Australia. And so we recorded that session. We're going to be putting it onto the blogs and videos section of our website. So that's a little 20-minute session. Now, that's handy for you. I'm only telling you about that because you might be bored on Saturday night and you want to watch it. No, I'm just joking. Because if you've got new staff, you know, who are coming on, or they haven't been to one of the information sessions that we've run for you, then that 20-minute session really talks about the process and demystifies it and gives it language. It's a bit fun. So as a 20-minute information session about Service Excellence accreditation, it's one that you can take and keep and play as many times as you like, you know. So that's why I'm telling you about that one. We are developing online team building sessions, I became aware, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I became aware when I was sitting in my sister's house 2 weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, and her company, which is a national company, told her and all of the staff in the company that they would be attending Friday afternoon bingo, right, as a team building activity. And my sister thought about this, and she's busy, right? She's a sort of CEO, and she's busy, and she's like, are you serious? Are you serious? Online bingo as a way of getting to know my colleagues? All right, so no word of a lie. Someone in head office read out numbers. They had a virtual game card, and they got to click when and if their number came up. And all I could hear was like 88, 16. I thought, that's team building.
How many people in the team?
Oh, there's about
Like
80,
hundreds?
80 or
Oh,
90. Yeah. Well, there was 80 or 90 that showed up. And I thought, what a missed opportunity. You know, how can you build team culture and how can you connect with a game of bingo? You can't. So we're designing team time on the wire. And there's a really, really thought out games to build team connection and to get lots and lots of outcomes out of them. The main outcome being let's have some fun when we're working virtually, because it's really hard, you know, to connect in a meaningful way. And so we want people to really get, we want people to just have a great time and laugh and learn. Laugh and learn on the wire. That's what we're on it. That's what we're designing right now. So keep an eye out for that booker. You can book a half an hour session or a half a day session. It's up to you. So we're excited about doing something like that to build teams. That's all I wanted to rabbit on about today.
Marie, when do you expect to have that ready, your team building?
We are doing our pilot on the 19th of October.
Well, that's soon. Good.
I know, but you can book it any time because we know that we'll be ready. As Lisa said, if I have an idea, it generally gets turned into a plan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it will be good. It'll be like this, plus, you know, it'll be really fun and engaging. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if you've guessed it, but I really love to be with people and learning. And so that's just going to float my boat no end. Speaking of boats floating, I'm going camping. Where are you going?
I want to go to the hairdresser.
All right, the hairdresser. That sounds
I'm
exciting.
going boating.
I want to go to the pub.
Boating, Jen.
Want to go to the pub? Yeah, exactly.
I want to go out for a meal.
Yeah.
Good-o. When have you got that planned for, Jill?
Yeah, so hopefully sometime next week or next 2 weeks.
Oh, you've chosen your restaurant. Well, it gets exciting at this point, doesn't it? Oh, where am I going to go first?
Got to wait and see which ones are open.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to go to Victoria, but I'm still waiting to see if that's open.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go to Victoria. That's one. Where are
We're gonna
you
have
off
all
to,
the
Alan?
family over. We're gonna have all the family over.
All the
meal.
family, up to 20, I think, Jen. You can have up to 20 of your family over.
So all my family are in Victoria.
Oh,
No.
things we're
Bummer.
missing. The things we are missing.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for being part of this, for your contributions, and for working with us and being such amazing collaborators. You know that questions can come at any time. You can please just don't worry about how many times you might be sending us an email or giving us a call, because that's what we like. That's what we like. So take care, everybody. I will see you in a month, if not before. Good luck if you're having your assessment soon. We'll see you on the wire in a month.
Thanks, Murray.
Thank you,
Bye.
Marie.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Murray.
Lisa.
So good.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Good luck.